you're trained by the cult to say that, right? You're trained to actually feel that. And I get it all the time, man, and I love it. And then people meet my kids who are now, they've never gone anywhere that I didn't create, right? So we've moved out of California a couple of years ago. So for the last couple of years, they've just been home educated. And people meet, even yesterday when we were at a public event yesterday, and somebody was talking to my children, and they came over like, "What are you doing? Like, what? I don't understand why that, like, so your son is 8 going on 25. This daughter right here is 11 and this one's 13, but they're both going on 30. Like, what's going on? What are you doing, right? How do you discipline your kids, right?" And I get that all the time, right? And I'm like, "No, I taught them to be disciplined humans. That's a different thing." Right? I don't discipline them. I've taught them to be disciplined humans. We're on this team family mission together, and they're disciplined human beings. And you don't normally see that from kids. And they can articulate that, they can speak to that because we're around people all the time. So when you're talking about socialization, I ask people what that means. People say, "Oh, well, aren't you worried about socialization?" I am worried about socialization, but I'm worried about it for the kids that are in school. So, because what does it mean to be socialized? Well, it's to be able to, um, essentially fit into a specific crowd in a social function. Okay, cool. So if that's the definition, what's the crowd? Who is it? And do we want to fit into that crowd? I'm very intentional about the crowd that I have in my life. I'm very intentional, right? What you're the product of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Cool. I'm going to cultivate the hell out of those 5 people. I'm going to cultivate the relationships that I keep. I'm going to get away from relationships that no longer serve me or move me towards a goal. I'm going to be very specific about that. But we have this thought that, like, well, but for kids, we should just throw them into this, mess of a population. And again, what we've already determined through in this conversation is a false environment that doesn't map to life, with a whole bunch of people from who knows what kind of background. And the people that are going to speak into their life most may be a person that doesn't even like the job that they're in. And then, the people that are going to speak into their life the most, my kid's 5, it's going to be a bunch of other 5-year-olds with all of the 5-year-old wisdom that they have, right? And you're going to have and I'm not saying to shelter your kids from any other conversations. What I'm saying is that's what you think socialization is. Whereas my kids, we're very particular. I have got people here all the time at the house. They're interacting with people. We're out in society. They're interacting with people everywhere we go. They're interacting through other activities that we cultivate. We're on family trips with other families, and we're cultivating those relationships. They're calling other businesses for their businesses. They're going to the store and they're doing the shopping. They're they're preparing for a very different kind of life than other kids are. So the socialization thing is, man, again, I worry about socialization for sure, but only for the kids that are stuck in school.
Yeah, as we're having this conversation, man, and we're talking about this system and how it prevents real development, and it's the structure and the follow the orders and all this. I mean, I don't want to just kind of go on a complete tangent here, and get too political with it, but it's it's very socialistic in its development, right? It's building kind of a socialist society. And I think we're kind of seeing that play out, where, like you mentioned, we're 120 years into the system, and look at kind of what, we're experiencing in, modern times right now. It's very anti-capitalist, it's very anti-free thinker, free ideas, entrepreneurship. Is that a trait? I know you gave them there at the beginning of an educator. Is this entrepreneurial spirit guided towards maybe education? And how important is teaching that to kids? Get back to the show in a second, guys, but real quick, I want to tell you about today's sponsor, Magnesium Breakthrough by BioOptimizers. Do you know if you're getting enough magnesium? Because 4 out of 5 Americans aren't. And that's a big problem because magnesium is involved in more than 300 biochemical reactions in your body. Today, I want to talk to you about the most common signs to look for that could indicate you're magnesium deficient. Listen carefully to the end because there's going to be a special offer happening at the end of this that could be exactly what you need. Are you irritable or anxious? Do you struggle with insomnia? Do you experience muscle cramps or twitches? Do you have high blood pressure? Are you sometimes constipated? There are dozens of symptoms of magnesium deficiency, but these are just a few of the most common ones. Now, here's what most people don't know. Taking just any magnesium supplement won't solve your problem because most supplements use the cheapest kinds that your body can't use or absorb. That's why I exclusively recommend Magnesium Breakthrough by BioOptimizer. It's the only full spectrum magnesium supplement with 7 unique forms of magnesium that your body can actually use and absorb. All BioOptimizer supplements are the best in class, guys. I've been working with and using their products for over 7 years now. For some reason you feel differently, you can get a full refund, no questions asked. They're so confident in this that they're going to offer 365-day money back guarantee. Just go to biooptimizers.com/FrankRich. And in addition, we're going to give you a discount if you use code RICH10 for 10% off. Once again, guys, visit biooptimizers.com/FrankRich or click the link down there in the show notes and use code RICH10 to receive 10% off your order today.
Yeah, it's extraordinarily important. It's part of it because entrepreneurship is a microcosm of life. Entrepreneurship is a microcosm of how life actually works, right? Like that's the benefit of sports too. Sports are a microcosm for life, right? And so individual personal responsibility matters in entrepreneurship. It matters in sports. The ability to collaborate matters in sports. It matters in entrepreneurship. The ability to see patterns and go, how do I win? How do I make this a win-win? How do I like all of those things matter in sports, in entrepreneurship, and they matter in life. So yeah, those are all extraordinarily important parts in what you're talking about. The system itself has become more and more narrowly focused. And again, not accidental. The system itself was not set up for human development, but over time, as the unions have gotten controlled by people who are very much more socialist and I dare say sometimes communist, by nature, they are narrowing the already narrow focus of what teachers can do. They're handcuffed. They've got less intellectual freedom in the classroom than they ever had when they were teaching us. Like far less. They had less than when I was a public school teacher. Like there's less intellectual freedom, and there are more and more agendas just trickling in as well, where you've got to go with some of this, some of this craziness. And so the more everything is rewarded based on that, the less we're going to talk about things that matter, like what you're talking about with entrepreneurship.
I mean, obviously, I'm assuming that you would say home-based education would be ideal and optimal for most people. That would kind of be, you can create this environment like what you've done with your kids. You bring in the right people, you bring in the right mentors, you cultivate, a great environment at home. You get to learn, you get to see what dad's doing. You build kind of small time businesses here. There's a lot of people that are going to say that sounds great for you, but, due to just life where we're at right now, we can't do that. So what are some other educational systems out there that are outside of this conveyor belt, and what are we looking for? And then a follow-up to that kind of two-part question, what role does the home play, right? Because I think parents think you go to school to learn. I can't teach any of this stuff because I don't know these things. So what role does, this should actually be two separate questions here now that I'm thinking about it. What role does, homes and parenting play in the education development?
So there's almost a circular answer that kind of hits a couple of things there. So one of the things you said, as far as the ideal, right, the home ed and all that kind of stuff, it is an ideal if the parents don't get sucked into trying to recreate the cult at home. A lot of parents, right, will try to bring school home as homeschooling, and then all of a sudden things aren't working and they're fighting and they're like, this isn't working in our relationship because I'm trying to be the teacher and they're trying to be right, and they're not doing their work, and that's because you're trying to bring a cult that wasn't designed to optimize your life experience, and you're trying to drag that into your house. So I don't want to do that. That won't be optimal by any stretch of the imagination. So we don't want to do that. The looking for, I'm going to get back to the parents and I'm going to kind of circle back to the parents and what it should and could and actually does look like, and people don't realize this. So as far as like you're looking for a campus. Now, when you and I grew up, alternative schools, right? Quote unquote alternative. It meant, well, shit, this kid's on his way to juvenile hall, right? And so now there's a place where he can go and let's see if he goes to jail or not, right? All we're saying is take a look for something that is the alternative to what you now know as a slave system of school. So when you're looking at another campus, how closely does it mimic life? how closely do the experiences at that campus mimic the experiences that are going to be asked of you in life? Like life rewards you providing value and having a skill set and providing value and collaborating and all those meta skills. Does the school focus on that? Because there are some great, like Montessori is great at for an early age. I like Montessori up until about 8 years old. But if it is a more old school Montessori, you're going to be better off than the newer, like younger Montessoris tend to lean a little more on the woke side of things. But Montessori can be great. I opened a couple of Acton academies. Those can be great. Tim and I are launching about 50 Apogee campuses this coming fall. And we're going to look to do another 100 or so. And so we're launching these all throughout the US, Canada, and Australia this fall. They very much mimic life in the real world. We focus on things like physical education, meaning actually working out, not freaking dodgeball. Right. So we focus on things like that. All the kids are going to build a business or take their business into perpetuity. They're going to be focused on projects that look like real world projects. They're going to be focused on Socratic conversations so they can learn what to think or how to think, not what to think, right? Like this is how to actually articulate an argument. This is how to genuinely listen to somebody else. This is how to present evidence. This is how to accept new evidence and figure out how to change your mind. This is how to recognize a logical fallacy. This is like those kind of things matter. So a campus should represent what is needed in real life, if it's anything worth its salt. And then circling back around to the parents again, no, you don't want to bring school home, but you are always and forever the primary educator in your child's life. Period. End of story. If you're sending them somewhere else, that's fine. Just understand that you are partnering with somebody who may or may not be actually on your side. If you're sending them to somebody who's essentially like taking an enemy stance on stuff, then that's what you're doing. You're feeding your kid one thing on one side and you're doing the other. And like, you're going to find like you just have to realize who you're partnering with, but you're always and forever the primary educator. They will do what you do before they do what you say. Right. And people go, oh, well, I'm not an educator. I'm not. No, you are the primary educator. You are. Where did you send them to learn to walk? Nowhere. Nowhere. You didn't send them anywhere. They stayed with you. You walked. And as they started developing naturally and learning to walk, you held on to them. You're like, here you go. Or you cheered them on as they started taking those steps and then they fell and you cheered on the failure. So they knew they should get back up and they should do it again. Right. And like you are the primary educator.